Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are opening what has to be one of the strangest consulting proposals maybe ever received, an ancient blueprint for fixing modern distrust, and it's apparently come straight from Mars.
That's right. We're diving into the Zyloth diaries. It's this collection of source material, really, offering an interplanetary look at Earth's current political climate.
Yeah, and it's incredibly focused, isn't it? It hones right in on this growing anxiety around ideas like Agenda 47 and those persistent deep state concerns that seem to be fracturing trust everywhere.
Exactly. So the mission here, our mission for this deep dive, is to really unpack Zyloth's systematic approach. It's like 4,000 years old, born out of a crisis they had.
And see how those solutions might apply into democratic security right here, right now. We want to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding maybe why we're feeling this breakdown of trust from an intelligence that's apparently already been through it.
hmm And to really get Zyloth's innovation, you kind of have to understand the Martian crisis that sparked it all. This was 4,324 years ago, a really paranoid time they just called the Blue Scare.
The blue scare, okay.
Ok-
Sounds dramatic, but you're saying the fear was like real.
Yeah.
Shadow governance threatening their whole society.
Oh, absolutely genuine. It was this climate of just extreme institutional anxiety. Martian officials seriously believed, I mean, really believed, that hostile Earth groups had infiltrated their government. Deep cover agents, shadow governance from the inside.
Wow. And why blue scare?
Apparently, it was named, maybe a bit trivially, after the blue uniforms the suspected Earth agents supposedly wore. Point is, it was this foundational crisis of institutional trust. It almost brought Martian democracy to its knees, really, until Zyloth stepped in.
Okay, so let's make the jump to today. Zyloth, watching us, thinks Earth is repeating these old Martian mistakes. So where do we start? The diagnosis. What does Zyloth actually define as Agenda 47 from his, ancient Martian viewpoint?
Well, Zyloth's take is characteristically dry, almost clinical. He basically says Agenda 47 looks like what he calls a planetary ritual.
A ritual.
Yeah, a phase where political groups try to, quote, rebuild democracy by systematically taking out the democratic parts of it.
He calls that institutional self-predation. That sounds pretty ominous. It suggests a kind of predictable self-destructive loop.
It does. Now, just to be clear for you listening, we should state neutrally what Agenda 47 means in Earth terms. It refers to the campaign platform Donald J. Trump put forward for a potential 47th presidency.
Right.
And that platform includes policies like sweeping economic tariffs, major immigration crackdowns, deep restructuring of federal agencies, think DOJ, and proposals for significantly expanded presidential powers, especially over the civil service.
Okay, got it. But the key point from Zyloth isn't just a list of policies, is it?
Exactly. To his analytical mind, it's not really a policy document. It's a behavioral algorithm,
Yeah.
a measurable pattern.
An algorithm. Explain that.
It's this consistent repeating urge you see in civilizations when institutions start decaying. The urge to reclaim them through radical consolidation of power, instead of through democratic collaboration and critically transparent accountability.
That's a really interesting way to frame it. Seeing political disruption as almost a predictable behavior when civic trust just collapses. So what's his main observation, or warning maybe, about this specific algorithm?
His warning really boils down to this tension between efficiency and transparency. He basically says, when leaders promise salvation through simplification, check how many oversight committees quietly vanish in the footnotes.
So simplification isn't always good.
Right. Zyloth warns that efficiency and accountability, they only really work together when you have transparent systems connecting them. Otherwise, you just get what he famously called faster secrecy.
Faster secrecy, meaning you just achieve bad outcomes quicker and maybe nobody notices until it's too late. And he says this drive for simplification follows a pattern, like 3 parts.
Yeah, this is the pattern of institutional self-predation that Mars, well, they learned it the hard way. The first element is symbolic reconstruction.
Okay, what's that?
It's the political act of rebranding democracy itself, framing it as something that needs to be taken aback from, its existing citizens or institutions. Often uses really aggressive us versus them language. It essentially paints the government as an enemy to be conquered, not a structure you need to maintain.
Ah, okay. So if you believe the institution is already corrupt, then getting rid of its internal checks and balances starts to feel justified, maybe even necessary. What's next?
Next comes administrative purges, and this, Zyloth says, is the key destructive bit. It's mistaking the wholesale removal of people mass firings for actual lasting systemic reform.
Right.
Zyloth saw Mars try this. It didn't fix the underlying design flaws in their institutions, it just swapped one group of people for another, often less experienced group, and that just led to, well, faster dysfunction.
So changing the people doesn't help if the structure itself allows unchecked power. Makes sense.
Exactly. And the third element is power compression. This is basically concentrating authority, usually justified by saying it increases efficiency.
How did that play out on Mars?
In their experience, it meant centralizing judicial, legislative, executive functions all into like one streamlined executive body. Which, yeah, maybe it was efficient short term, but it completely removed all the systemic safety valves, all the checks and balances.
Okay, so it sounds like Mars really hit this wall first,
Mm.
and maybe Earth is heading towards a similar point now, which brings us, thankfully, to the actual solution Zyloth developed during the Blue Scare.
Mm-hmm.
They realized they needed something systematic, right? Scientific, constitutional, not just paranoia and purges.
Precisely. That realization was the turning point. It led directly to the development of the Systematic Transparency and Accountability Protocol, or STP. And this was pioneered by Zyloth. His core philosophy was really the complete opposite of the Blue Scare paranoia. He said, and this is a key quote, "We cannot defeat shadows by creating more darkness. Only through illumination, systematic, constitutional, and democratic can we preserve what we've built."
That's a powerful statement, a fundamental constitutional idea, really. So how did STAP translate that into like a working system? What were the actual components?
STP was built on three main pillars, all linked together. First, you had the network analysis protocols. These were pretty sophisticated mathematical algorithms. Their job was to map influence networks and spot unusual behavior within the political system.
Okay, I get the concept using data. But any data system can be twisted politically, can't it?
Yeah.
The source mentions this influence score formula, weight factor, connection strength, temporal consistency. Sounds complex. How did they stop it just becoming, a hit list for whoever was in power?
That's the crucial question, right? And the genius of ESTA was how it quantified suspicion without automating accusation. Take temporal consistency, for example. The algorithm wasn't triggered by just, say, one meeting or one donation.
Mm-hmm.
It looked for irregular spikes in activity over time, things like sudden, huge, previously unrecorded campaign donations happening at the same time as, say, highly unusual stock trades right before a major policy shift. It analyzed patterns of influence, systemic anomalies, not just whether person A knew person B.
So it tried to spot the signals of potential manipulation, regardless of who was involved politically. Less about individuals, more about the system's health.
Exactly. Then the second component acted as the political brake. Constitutional safeguards. Every single investigation flagged by these protocols. It required mandatory rigorous oversight and, critically, approval from independent Martian judicial chambers.
So an independent check. That prevented the algorithm just being used as a weapon by the executive branch.
Precisely. And the third component made sure the SDPI system itself couldn't become the next hidden power structure.
How? That's where transparency mechanisms came in. Regular public reporting on the methods used, how the scores were calculated, why specific investigations were even started, and this directly led to how the Blue Scare was actually resolved. It involved something Zyloth called recursive accountability.
Recursive accountability. Okay, that sounds important, but maybe a bit abstract. What's the idea behind that? Why is it so essential?
It basically means creating watchdogs for the watchdogs. The citizens didn't just blindly trust the SciSysApp system. They were empowered to monitor the monitoring systems themselves.
How did that work in practice?
The core innovation was setting up citizen oversight committees. These committees had real power to audit the methodology, the data inputs, and check if the SciSysApp analysts were following constitutional rules. That's what allowed Zyloth to have effective security while preserving democratic principles. The system flagged patterns for investigation. It didn't just assume guilt.
So thinking about it today, STPI wasn't like a police force, really. It was more like a systematic weather service for democracy. It measured the atmospheric conditions, the influence patterns, made sure the forecasts were checked by judges, and then published its methods so citizens could hold the forecasters accountable.
That's a perfect analogy, actually, and the result. Within just 2 Martian years, the crisis eased off, not through purges or crackdowns, but through, well, educated public vigilance and systematic illumination. Transparency.
Okay, so STP saved Mars 4,000 years ago. Now, what's Zyloth offering Earth today? He's apparently packaged up an executive summary of STAPI, called it the NXUS framework, and sent it as a kind of care package for institutional failure.
Yeah, and he sees it as pretty urgent because Zyloth recognizes that Earth's current approach to this push to consolidate presidential power, talk of mass firings of civil servants, treating oversight like it's just an obstacle, it looks disturbingly similar to the failed responses Mars tried early on in its blue scare, the stuff that didn't work.
So the NXUS framework is basically saying, don't do what we did wrong, do what we eventually figured out. Lay out that contrast for us. How does NXUS differ from what some on Earth are trying now?
Well, where some Earth movements advocate for basically tearing down institutions to root out suspected corruption, Zyloth, through NXUS, recommends constitutional transparency. Address those deep state worries through systematic, pattern-based, auditable investigation. Shine a light on the structure, don't just smash it.
Okay, that's transparency versus destruction. What about power?
Where some on Earth are pushing for power compression, concentrating control in the executive, NXUS demands democratic accountability. That means strengthening oversight mechanisms, distributing authority, precisely to prevent any single entity, even the government itself, from becoming the shadow power.
Makes sense. And the third piece? The citizens.
Instead of just stirring up abstract paranoia, which can be easily manipulated, NXUS calls for citizen education, empowering people with the actual tools and knowledge to identify genuine systemic threats without feeling like they have to resort to destroying democratic norms to protect themselves. The system has to be clear enough for the public to actually understand and scrutinize it.
And to support this interplanetary offer, Zyloth apparently set up the Zyloth Intelligence Collective, the ZIC.
Yes, the ZIC. It's dedicated, apparently, to democratic infrastructure analysis and promoting this idea of constitutional transparency intelligence. But what's really fascinating here, I think, and it says a lot about Zyloth's whole philosophy, is the origin story of the ZIC.
Oh. Tell us, how do big ideas like this start?
Well, according to the diaries, the entire ZIC framework, this sophisticated, potentially world-saving institution, was conceived and basically hammered out during a simple Martian tea interval.
A tea interval, like a coffee break.
Sort of, yeah. It was this mandatory but informal downtime between two formal tea sessions, a time when citizens traditionally got together to just discuss local civic stuff, political issues, completely outside the official government channels.
So the most advanced democratic intelligence group in the solar system started over basically informal tea and civic chat.
That's what the source says. It really underscores Zyloth's belief that true democratic innovation doesn't just come from top-down bureaucracy or military thinking. It bubbles up from the collective engagement of ordinary citizens talking to each other.
That's quite something. Does the ZIC have, like, a core principle?
It does. They apparently have a core mathematical principle, even. It basically states that the effectiveness of democratic intelligence increases in proportion to transparency and citizen involvement.
Oh.
And it decreases exponentially with institutional secrecy.
Right. So simpler terms.
The more you tell the public and the more they can participate, the smarter and safer your democracy gets. The second secrecy starts creeping in and pushing citizens out, the whole system destabilizes really fast.
Okay, that brings us towards the end of our deep dive into the Zyloth diaries for today. What's the sort of final big lesson Zyloth wants us to take away from, 4 millennia of Martian trial and error?
I think the main lesson is really clear. The best defense against hidden power structures, whether you call them deep states or blue scares, isn't more secrecy or more concentrated power. It's systematic transparency, accountability that actually has teeth, and crucially, radical citizen education, all operating strictly within a democratic framework. You don't fight fear with fear, you fight it with rigorous, audited light.
And why does Zyloth think this message is so urgent for Earth right now? Why is he looking our way so intently?
He points directly at what he calls humanity's current heightened inventions. Things like advanced AI, hypersonic weapons, systems becoming more autonomous. It means that institutional failure, the collapse of trust, it now carries catastrophic risks that maybe Mars didn't face quite so starkly 4,000 years ago. He seems genuinely worried about us potentially self-destructing.
He even offers a conflict prevention equation.
Yeah, it's quite direct, basically. As institutional trust and democratic legitimacy go up, the probability of major conflict goes down exponentially. For Zyloth, the stakes aren't just political stability, they're potentially civilizational.
High stakes indeed. And apparently, if Nayaris-inspired ideas actually help prevent conflict, Zyloth hinted that honorary Earth citizenship might be nice. I think he might have earned it just for the diagnosis, frankly.
I would tend to agree it's quite the analysis.
So as a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over, Zyloth left us with that rather pointed Martian observation. Sarcasm is not hostility. It's the last functioning light in collapsing institutions. Keep yours charged. Okay, maybe take that with a grain of salt. But let's go back to that ZIC origin story.
The T interval.
Exactly. If Zyloth's potentially world-saving institution was born during a simple, informal tea interval, just a quiet moment of organized civic discussion, what seemingly mundane, transparent civic action happening right now might be the seed for Earth's next great democratic innovation. What's the quiet, maybe unsung conversation happening in your community, your workplace, your online groups? That could form the basis for our own systems of recursive accountability. It really makes you consider the immense power hidden in small, transparent engagements. Something to think about.